It's a total fish out of water.
It's a little bit of a muddy plot.
It's not a happy movie. Are we on spoilers? His mouth was wide open. It gets even dumber.
This is the dumbest moment of the movie from him.
Sheer will. Let's talk about your career.
So we're going to talk about Sicario, both a little bit about the first one because we watched it right before we saw the second one.
Right.
Just a few hours before, then we went to the theater and watched the new one. So Glenn, tell us what you thought about reviewing the original and then going right to see the second one.
Okay. Sicario is intense pretty much from start to finish. It's well crafted in every way. There's really very little I would say that is wrong with Sicario. I'd have to really think about it. As far as you know, I don't know. Everything is good. There's nothing bad I can think of off the top of my head to say about it. It is just a great story. It's intense. You follow along with the character of
Emily
Blunt and her kind of outsider view of this shadowy world of spies and assassins and stuff, and it feels authentic more so than most movies. It feels real. It feels like you're the way police act, the way FBI act, the way CIA guys act. I mean, I'm not in the CIA, but
But it feels.
But it does feel very authentic and real. And yeah, what about you? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, the first Sicario, pretty amazing. It's one of the few more modern day movies that aren't in one of the wild genres like fantasy or sci-fi or horror that I find myself going back and rewatching a lot. I've seen it quite a few times. And it's Denis Villeneuve, a great director.
Not Dennis Villanueva,
yeah.
However everyone else says it.
Yeah, he did Arrival and some other films that we really like.
Great movie.
Recently did the spectacular looking new Blade Runner reboot.
Yeah, that was good.
But and this was Sicario was amazing. One of the things for me that makes it so amazing, besides there's a style to it, like every shot and the timing of scenes and how they flow into the next. It's very well crafted. A lot of thought is put into it. It's not just a standard wide shot, close up, wide shot, close up. Everything looks very nice. It's paced very nice. But what really seems to make it, for me, a better story and a better movie than the second one is this new Sicario 2, Day of the Soledad, which means soldier.
Soldado.
Soldado means soldier.
It's Sicario 2.
Sicario 2,
now
right.
Don't make us say that word.
Is that we're going through the story with the main character in the first Sicario who doesn't know anything, just like the audience. And that's Emily Blunt.
Right.
And, great actress, and everybody in the Sicario, both movies, I think are great actors. They all did great jobs. But following a main character who's as strong an actor as Emily Blunt, and going through her frustration, her excitement, her curiosity. The audience is going through that too. And when you can take a main character and tell the story through the main character, which is the audience too. We're the audience. As she learns, we learn. And I felt that was missing from Sicario too.
Well, it's a total fish out of water story. She's an FBI agent, for God's sake. She's doing raids on drug houses.
So not completely new.
This is on another level. Yeah. What she gets involved in, and it's serious and it's scary and it's terrible. Just the way that immigrants are dealt with, and it's just a great movie. The only thing I would say is it's very bleak.
Mm-hmm.
It's very down. It's not a happy movie.
It's not.
If you're all right with that, it's great. It's a solid movie.
Well, one of the great things about bleak movies, dark movies, disturbing movies, is not that you're rooting for the bleakness or excited by the cruelty. It's seeing how good people try to deal with the situation,
Right.
and sort of bring a little humanity into the world with all this bleakness, with all this darkness, with all the horrible tragedy going on. They're trying to make a difference, especially in Emily Blunt's case. She's an FBI agent. She wants to follow the rule of law a couple of times in that movie. She's talking about, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's bring them to court.
She's kind of a crusader.
Yeah. And so are the mercenary teams and the other operatives that they work with, Josh Brolin and the rest of the government, whatever group they're with. They're trying to do good too, but they're sort of going outside of the boundaries of what's a little more gray, like what's right and wrong, to accomplish the same goal that she wants to, basically, is try to stop the criminals. But it's great because we're learning through her. Every step of the way, I feel like I'm feeling everything she's feeling. And that, in my opinion, some of the best movies are when you feel like you're learning and you're experiencing as the main character is. That's why sometimes, not always, but sometimes just having one central character that you can kind of follow through and really relate to, there's a closer, kind of psychic bond almost with that character and the audience.
So many elements of this movie are good, like that main character. And one of the things I love about a movie, and most movies don't do this, one of the things I really love about a movie is when I see something in a movie that I have never experienced before.
Absolutely.
Whether it's some weird sci-fi thing or some horror thing or just a look into a world that I've never seen before.
Nothing about, right?
And, well, maybe nothing, but I mean...
Not the details.
Not the details, and just the solid look into that world where you go, yeah, that feels real, and that feels like something that's going on or could be going on in the world. I love that in a movie. And this movie is just... Everything else just comes together perfectly. Sicario 2... Not quite.
So yeah, we're not doing any spoilers yet, but yeah. So give me some of your impressions about Sicario 2. Good, bad, what?
I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. It's bad. It's only kind of bad in comparison to Sicario. If you take Sicario 2 and divorce it from everything else, it's not a bad movie. It's a decent movie. It has a lot of problems, or a few problems, but it's a decent movie. It's missing things like Emily Blunt.
The main
character. It's missing the director, right? It's a different director,
it's a different
cinematographer.
Same writer, though.
A same writer that
helps a little bit.
Right. And there's a world that kind of got created in Sicario, and this doesn't feel alien or different or weird from that world. It feels like we're in the same world.
It does.
We still got Josh Brolin in his Crocs. Or flip flops or whatever he wears, and doing his deals, but yeah, I mean it's in this movie, Benicio del Toro, Alejandro, the hitman, the Sicario, is the main character, and that was not that's way different from the first movie where we were kind of outsiders. Now we're on the inside, and we're like fully in his world. He's an interesting character. I mean, he was a lawyer?
I think so.
Whose family got wiped out by one of the cartels, and he's sort of like on a vengeance trip to try and get back at them, and maybe I didn't get it from the first movie, but he spoilers if you haven't seen Sicario, the first movie, he kills a cartel leader at the end of that movie and his family as they're having dinner. Brutally murders them. And then in this movie that seems like, well, the guy he killed in the first movie wasn't the guy, or maybe there's another guy that he wanted to kill. Was it Did they get into that in
Yeah,
Sicario 2?
they-
I don't even remember.
They did. I can clarify that.
Go ahead.
So basically, the guy he killed in the first movie was a high up in the organization, but he had a boss who ordered him to do
So
it.
he was the one who
But
did
I think
it,
that
but then
he
the
actually
boss
pulled
told
the
him to do
he
it.
probably pulled
All
the
right.
trigger.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where you go, kind of this happened in the first movie, didn't it get resolved? But no,
Well, there's
because there's a lot of people in the cartel, and so basically, yeah. You want to kind of give a real quick rundown of the plot?
Yeah, let's go into full spoilers
Okay.
then for Sicario 2. Here we
Just
go.
before we do that, you liked it? Okay.
Oh yeah, I liked Sicario 2 quite a bit. It had some not having the viewpoint of a main character was kind of hurt it, I think, because Benicio del Toro doesn't become the main character till further in. The story is kind of about. Well, I mean, you watch the trailers. It's basically there are Muslim terrorists or Islamic terrorists being escorted across the border. This is kind of the setup of the movie, and then the whole mission is to go and try to get the cartels to fight.
Right, they're trying to start a war to keep the cartels from helping terrorists cross the border somehow.
Well, yeah. So, well, we'll get into it. But basically, there's this other plot about terrorism early on, and then it kind of becomes about their solution to the terrorism, and then Benicio del Toro becomes a part of that.
Yeah.
And then his story kind of branches off with another character in the story. So it's a little all over the place. And as we're the first movie, we're seeing it through a main character's eyes. I really miss Emily Blunt or an Emily Blunt-like character in this movie, because you got Josh Brolin and you've got Benicio del Toro, who are badasses but kind of mysterious because we don't quite know who they are or what their experience is, and I really like that. I really like not knowing, like, they're the mysterious characters.
Right. Brolin especially in this movie, you learn a little bit more and you get to know Benicio del Toro a little more, his character a little more, but Brolin's still kind of shadowy, and we don't learn anything about him. He's just kind of there leading the band, right? He's just there controlling things.
And that's one
as
of
usual.
The one things I really liked about the first one is we knew more about Emily Blunt and her partner and what her problems and goals and motivations were, and then she had to deal with these mysterious characters on the periphery, and so it keeps everything over there a mystery, which is really great. And instead, this movie, we remove this and then we bring the mystery over here, and now we're just following these characters.
It's not as mysterious.
It's not as mysterious. It does humanize them a little bit more, but sometimes it's almost interesting when you don't humanize them, because you're still wondering what are their flaws and what are their weaknesses, and what is the limits of their boundaries, right?
Well, Benicio del Toro in the first movie he's frightening.
Oh, he is
all the way through the movie. He becomes more and more frightening as the movie goes. In this movie, he's kind of starts at that level, but then drops off into more like we humanize him more. He interacts with the girl. Are we in spoilers? I don't even know.
Okay, so let's go through the plot of Sicario 2 here real quick. Spoilers. So basically, the movie starts off with some terrorist actions. There's some explosions in a grocery store. There's some immigrants trying to cross the Mexico border, and there's some explosions that go off with people wearing vests.
Well, yeah, they catch one of these terrorists mixed in with the immigrants.
And then, so Josh Brolin is brought in by the government. There's a bunch of high ups in military and some other politicians or whatever, and they meet up with Josh Brolin, and they're trying to figure out how to solve this problem, because they think that the cartel are being paid or something by Islamic terrorists to help them cross the border, and they're trying. So how do we stop that? How do we stop immigration? Is a huge problem already. Just stopping normal people, who are escaping horrible conditions or wanting a better life. But how do we stop these terrorists from from coming across the border, and they come up with the solution to have the cartels basically do infighting, so that if they're fighting, turn them against each other. So if they're fighting each other, then they won't be as focused on some other things that are basically trying to create a lot of chaos on the inside, and somehow that's going to slow down an Islamic terrorist or make it easier to deal with. It's a little bit of a muddy plot.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They may have even clarified it a little bit more, and in one viewing and having reviewed a synopsis just to refresh my memory before we started recording today, it's not clear. Maybe if I saw it again, it would be more clear. Maybe they hit on a few details that I'm missing, but it's still it's a little muddy how they're going to stop terrorism. So the beginning of the movie opens with terrorism.
It stops being about terrorism after the introduction, the first few minutes, and then it goes into, we're dealing with this cartel war, and it really never even identifies the cartels. They have no identity. The cartels who are supposedly fighting have no identity, have no presence in this movie, really, other than the people they hire or who are on the take, cops.
Right.
Basically, we don't ever see cartel people, and aside from maybe the coyotes who are taking
there's no
people across, but I don't think those are even cartel people.
Yeah, there's no antagonist really, like one central character that they're constantly fighting against until a certain point, and then it kind of so what happens is they set up this plot to have cartels fight each other by robbing from them and doing different things to make them think that the cartels are attacking each other. The government is doing things. But then they come up with this, and this is sort of the central plot of the film, is they're going to kidnap the daughter of one of the cartels and make it seem like it was the other cartel organization. And so Benicio and Josh Brolin and their henchmen go in, kidnap her, and pretend that they bring her back to America. Pretend that they save her. They set up this elaborate plot at this safe house, where they then go out and come back in as FBI guys or government guys, and stage a whole thing like where they're shooting and killing the bad guys in the house, which were them. I mean, they were the bad guys. And then to make her think that, okay, the U.S. government has saved her. And she's a little suspicious. As a matter of fact, eventually she identifies Benicio del Toro. She's like staring at him. In every scene, she's got this really weird look as he walks by, and she's asking him some questions. And then eventually she just says, "You're that lawyer, aren't you? Whose family got completely murdered."
Down the road after he takes her.
Yeah, but I think she was suspicious early on. You could see it. Like she didn't know when was the right time to approach that.
Well, yeah, it was kind of a cool thing when he comes in and talks to her. Hey, how's it going? Sounds like an American guy. Hey, you all right? You doing all right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like Alejandro.
Right.
Putting on a voice. It was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Good stuff, definitely.
Interesting side character, the young coyote who takes people across the border, who gets tangled up with these other coyotes and starts becoming more of a cog in this wheel of taking people across the border.
You talking about the
young kid,
the teenager?
Yeah. And that's sort of a side story that we follow along with, and develop a little bit of the development of that character, just to show the impact of this whole thing on people. The scene where he gets into the SUV and it's like some white soccer mom. She's like, "Yeah, it's great money."
Yeah, she says something like, "Show me a job that pays more and I'll do it."
And he's like, "Yeah, we're bringing people across the border." And
she was just there to give him a ride home.
Yeah, but an interesting character. And then that character has a really dumb, coincidental moment.
Well, so yeah, he is, before we get into that, he's the parallel to the cop in the first movie, right? We keep cutting in the first Sicario. There's this cop who has a family and a son who likes to play soccer.
Oh yeah, right.
And he's just transporting goods for the cartel, right? And he gets wrapped up in the plot, and then his family obviously has to suffer because he doesn't survive. Because Alejandro Benicio del Toro, ends when he's done with him, he kills him. And so the side story in this movie, the side story in the first movie, I really like that they kept that element. Like they took somebody.
Well, yeah, you can kind of look at his story, and then once we get introduced to the girl that they kidnap, she's almost like that Emily Blunt character who's like in the middle of all this chaos and not exactly the same, but an interesting little, character that gets injected into the movie. Yeah. And kind of becomes the central part of the movie.
So what ends up happening is after they've pretended to save the girl in the U.S. from her captors, they transport her back into Mexico, and they're supposed to deliver her to, I guess, the military or the police or something, the Mexican police. And obviously the cartel or somebody who has control of the police basically have the government, the police attack the Americans that are bringing the girl back. And then there's a shootout, and a bunch of Mexican police die, and during the shootout, the girl basically escapes and runs into the desert. And because more police backup are coming, Benicio del Toro decides, well, I'll go into the desert and find her, and the rest of you need to escape across the border before the police come, because we have to, we can't, they're trying to keep this on the down low, but they just killed a bunch of Mexican police. So this is where the whole story changes from it was originally a plot about terrorism and stopping that, and then now trying to make the cartels fight. And then now we're almost in a third movie where now let's just keep the girl alive. Let's find the girl and keep her alive. And in this part of the movie, Benicio del Toro ends up finding her and tries to get her back across the border, but no help from Josh Brolin. And because of all the death of the Mexican police, America wants this mission stopped. As a matter of fact, one of the terrorist actions that happened in the U.S. at the grocery store, the people that were involved with that were identified to not be immigrants or people who crossed the border. They were actually they were American citizens who were already living in America. So they decided to basically... Except for one. Right. But they basically decided to shut down this whole operation, especially because of all the chaos it caused in killing Mexican police instead of just cartels. So they say, we're going to stop the operation, kill the girl, come home. And Josh Brolin tells Benicio that this is what has to happen. And he seems fine with that at the time. And Benicio isn't fine with it, because his whole vendetta is based on his wife being killed, shot in the head, and his daughter being thrown in a vat of acid, as they mentioned in the first movie. So he's got a teenage girl here, and even though she's a spoiled brat, and even uses her influence with the cartel that we saw earlier in the movie to, beat up a girl at school and threaten basically the dean of the school that she's going to. Yeah. So she's already kind of a little criminal, but I mean, she's young enough that perhaps there's hope for her, and Benicio sees that.
It's a kid.
Yeah, it's a kid still.
She's going to do whatever she can to push back.
Right. And then you mentioned, so tell us about the scene with the coyote teenager. What's that goofy, coincidental scene that then pays off later?
Well, so Brolin and Del Toro and one or two other guys are in a car. They're going through a parking lot at a mall or someplace, and they almost run over the kid, the coyote, who at that point isn't as deep in with the others, but and the kid's like mad and hits the hood of the car and eyeballs him, and then they give him the police siren whoop, whoop, and he wanders off. Then later on, of course, who does he see who has a hat on at night and through the window of a bus? Oh, there's Benicio. He points him out to his boss, and sets off the whole final mess.
Right,
just like coincidentally saw them,
at a party.
knows that he's affiliated with the cops, and then coincidentally saw him again and identified him.
From a distance, at night, in the dark, with headlights behind Benicio del Toro.
All right. Sure, why not?
That coincidence of seeing him in the parking lot with the police and then later on identifying him is a goofy coincidence, right? But it's made even worse that I could have accepted it if maybe they had bumped into each other out there as immigrants, and then he saw him and he was close to him, and he could have that double take where he's like, hey, wait a minute, aren't you? No, but instead he's in a building and he walks up to a window and it's nighttime and he's probably 40, 50 feet away and he has a hat on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, there's no way you'd identify your own father in that situation, right? If he was in a disguise.
Yeah, that's not even the worst, dumbest moment in this movie.
No, it's not.
But you could forgive that.
So,
if not for other things.
Right. So I'll bring you there and you tell us there. So basically, Benicio is trying to get the girl to cross the border, so they pretend to be immigrants. And that's when the coyote teenager identifies him because he saw him earlier. And then the people transporting immigrants across the border basically draw guns on Benicio and then identify the girl who's cut her hair and everything, but they finally realize, oh, this is the girl that's been missing, because her face was all over the news, even though she cut her hair. But then they take Benicio and they're gonna kill him, but they're gonna use him as sort of an initiation for some of the younger kids. And they put a bag over his head and they tie him up basically with his hands behind his back, and he's on the ground, he's struggling, and they give the gun to one of the teenagers and tell him to kill Benicio, and he can't do it. He gives the gun back, and so they pull the young teenager who was the one who identified him, and give him the gun.
Well, they kill the guy who wouldn't shoot Benicio.
Oh, that's right. The teenager.
The kind of bad guy cliche where you kill your own people, but all right, whatever. And then then the next kid, our character we've been following along with, takes a gun, shoots Benicio del Toro in the head. Through this bag he's got over his duct tape to his head. And like nothing. And I was like, okay, did they do some switcheroo? Maybe that's not Benicio and they put someone else. I mean, at that point you're thinking, there's no way they killed Benicio del Toro's character off, right? There's no way they would do that because he's sort of the
main character.
He's the franchise.
He's the franchise, yep.
Or at least a big part of it. But no, they shot him and he survived.
Yeah.
He got that lucky headshot that just...
in the mouth.
His mouth was wide open and the bullet went through and didn't knock out any teeth. Made a bloody mess of him. And yeah, he was pretty messed up, but after they all drive away, they all load up, they take the girl, they leave. He's laying there, the camera, dollies by or whatever, and he starts moving and struggling to get loose and manages to get free. And then it gets even dumber.
Yeah, this is the dumbest
Horribly
moment.
Injured man, shot through the face at close range, in the middle of the desert, manages to get up and walk through the desert and find where our other characters are.
So yeah, when the gangsters leave Benicio del Toro for dead, it's still dark, early in the morning, but still dark, and they drive off, and then the military tracks them down because they want to the U.S. military tracks them down with helicopters because they want to get the girl back. Actually, I think they want to, make sure that she's killed so she doesn't talk.
Yeah.
So they go and they stop the pickup trucks and murder all the guys and take the girl. And they're supposed to kill the girl too, but Josh Brolin decides no, we're going to put her into protective custody, or what do they call that?
Yeah, there's no way he could do that by himself.
Well, he probably has connections. He's that mysterious character with a lot of connections, right?
It's like he's giving up everything by doing that.
He's not following order.
It's not like his bosses are going to be happy with that and let him go. He's got to go too. Bye.
Well, I think if he told his men that she was killed, as far as everybody's concerned, that they're probably going to go with what he says, even though he gets some help to get her into protective custody. But so anyways, they do that and then they leave after they've killed everybody. And the 2 trucks are there, and now it's daytime. They did this during the day, so at least the sun has come up. So these trucks left Benicio del Toro in this little crater area where they thought he was dead while it was dark, drove away, and then the sun was up, and then they had the encounter with the Americans and the helicopters and whatnot. Okay, now Benicio del Toro gets up and he's bleeding and he's stumbling around, and okay, so he's dealing with that. We see him stumbling through the desert, then he comes up over a rise, and there's the trucks. This is the dumbest moment in the movie. There's the 2 trucks that the guys were driving.
Arguably, yeah.
I mean,
that's terrible.
They would have been 30 or 40 miles away, having driven for 2 or 3 hours.
Even 2 miles away. He'd never catch up to him. He'd never get there. He would bleed to death first.
Well, even if he could control his bleeding, he'd be so messed up. Just getting to the road to get a ride would be an amazing task.
No way. Even if they were relatively close, maybe they were only 5 miles away. 5 miles through the desert, no water, bleeding.
It's pretty unbelievable.
And he catches up to him, no problem.
It makes me wonder if the writer wrote that silly scene, and I have to wonder...
And that's basically Benicio gets away. He gets in one of the vehicles and leaves, and that's kind of it. It's, title card 1 year later.
Right, and we could talk about what the closing scene in a moment, but basically, Benicio del Toro getting up and going any distance is, I mean, was it the writer that wrote this to say that he just walked 30 miles and found the trucks? It's hard to believe that because the first movie's so solid.
I almost want to see it again just to see how they did the progression of the vehicle leaving and how much time passed.
Well, he even woke up during the day.
How much time passed and then cut to something and then cut back to the guys in the vehicle with the girl and then the choppers following the road for some reason.
I think if they stay low, they're off radar or something. I don't know.
It looks cool.
It did look cool.
That's why.
Especially when they pull the copter up in front of the vehicle and on the road. So
it's a cool scene.
It is a cool looking scene.
It's a good action scene.
Because it wasn't just a bunch of CGI.
I want to see all that again just to see if it makes any sense. Maybe, I mean, every other review I'm watching on this says the same thing. It's like there's no way he would catch up to them.
There's no way.
It's impossible.
It seems like something in production happened, like maybe they had a different plan or something and they just didn't have the budget to finish it, or they ran out of production schedule. It'd be an easy fix.
It's like they leave, the gunfire goes on, the choppers come in, and Del Toro starts moving, hearing that, and they're close by, 5 minutes went by.
Well, I think they...
Doesn't seem like that.
They didn't want to be too close to Del Toro because they didn't want the military to find him, because then they would have had to kill him too. Remember they said, I'm glad...
But they don't know where he is. Right. The girl had a tracker on her. That's how they found her.
Here's my solution as the writer or director. He's laying there, tied up, and a bag over his head and shot through the mouth. How about somebody finds him and helps him? I mean, there you go. That's a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe Brolin finds him.
Well, I mean, even just somebody who's out there dirt bike riding or ATVing or something. I mean, just anything to where you could say, okay, another human being has intervened. Yeah. This will save him. But for him to get up and walk 30
Superman,
miles.
Right?
Well, that's what I didn't want from him.
Sheer will.
See... That's where it got silly.
Constitution.
No, the first movie is so sharp and everything feels real. The stakes are high. when something happens like that, like I was actually glad that they killed him because it was a huge loss. I thought, wow,
Yeah, it's shocking.
wow, they're willing to kill main characters like the head of the franchise.
And then it was a horrible scene too. He's like struggling and screaming and trying to,
it was intense.
I
felt bad when he finally pulled the trigger.
And I think it would have been, well, I don't know. I think they should have taken the bag off his head because the whole time I was convinced, well, that must be somebody else.
Yeah.
So there's no way he's going to survive that. Even a little pistol, splat, But yeah, perfect shot. So he's all right.
Well,
okay.
Coincidences can happen. I can give him that,
Sure,
but I can give that he survived it. I could even give it that he maybe stumbled close by for help or somebody found him. But to walk 30 miles, because those trucks couldn't be any closer than 30 miles. Hours went by. Daytime. It was night.
Kind of like this review.
Yeah. Okay.
So it ends. We're in the shopping mall.
1 year later.
1 year later, the kid now is total gangster, tatted up.
Yeah.
Looks like hell.
Walking with the attitude,
Yeah,
too.
he's a badass now, because he killed the guy, so he's in with them. And he goes into some places. He's working Orange Julius or someplace.
Well, I think he's picking up, money or something.
Whatever, yeah. He goes in the back and, who's there? Benicio.
Of course.
And he looks fine. Doesn't even have, like...
They showed him when he turned finally in the light, he had a little scar.
He didn't have, like, so... Let's talk about your career. Like he would have been. No, he's like, come on in. So bad.
Yeah,
so that's the setup for the sequel.
Well, the closing...
Right? For the third movie.
The closing scene, he says something to the kid. Do you remember?
Yeah, he says, so you want to be Sicario? And the kid kind of just says yes or whatever. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
And he goes, let's talk about your career.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's the end of the movie.
That was very jarring, that ending. Yeah, I think it was a setup for the third movie. So here's one thing I'm glad about for this movie. I enjoyed it overall.
Me too.
It had the writing. You can tell some of the writing from the first movie. The same guy. It's there. It's sharp. The scenes that we're in, what's going on is kind of crazy. But it was missing the filmmaking style of Denis Villeneuve and Emily Blunt. It was missing. But I did like seeing Josh Brolin again. I love seeing Benicio. The girl that Benicio was trying to help was a great little actress, and I felt her range of emotion, and she had this huge character arc, by the end. She's completely traumatized by everything and much more reserved and less judgmental and kind of a little, hard ass like she was before. So that, I enjoyed it, and I love seeing these characters. I just thought the ending fell apart. The coincidence with the coyote guy who saw him in the parking lot.
It reminded me of, honestly, and I don't know if this is even a bad thing, but it reminded me of a 24 episode or maybe 2 or 3 episodes of 24, especially the season where they were down in Mexico a lot. Kind of had that level of like, this feels like a TV show a little bit, even though 24 was like really intense and good, but and then it started doing things where I was like, no, they wouldn't even do this on 24. Jack Bauer gets shot through the head, he's fine. No, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, good overall. I say B minus.
B minus.
I think that was my grade.
I'm gonna give it a B just because the acting and the writing is pretty strong. Just a few, if they nailed the ending a little bit better, I might have bumped that up to a B plus. I'm not sure I could slip into the A minus range without the Emily Blunt character or some kind of main character to follow, and the style that was brought to the first movie.
Yeah, the movie didn't have the look of the first one.
Yeah,
not even close.
Yeah.
The feel of it.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend, obviously highly recommend the first movie. The first Sicario for me is an A+.
Nice. It's nice to get back into that world and to see it a little bit more. But yeah, it could have been better. B minus.
Do you have a grade? Do you have a grade for Sicario? If you
I never really thought about Sicario as far as grading it. It's in the A's, probably solid A.
yeah, yeah. For me, I'd give it.
There's
an
a few
A+,
things
'cause
about it that are a little bit. Well, I don't want to get into it
Yeah.
now, but it's a solid A.
There you go.
It's a very good movie.
So definitely check out Sicario, and I recommend Sicario too if you enjoy the first one, because you get more of that world
Oh, yeah.
and characters, just not quite as rough.
Yep.
All that.
Let's talk about your career.